Here's a nice picture I drew of Chandler Riggs, of course, who plays Carl Grimes on AMC's The Walking Dead. If you like this drawing and more, remember to follow me on all the social networks. The Walking Dead, Season 4, Episode 7, Dead Weight.
Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation, or Dead Nation, I guess, on Sunday, that is. I, of course, am Jim, here to bring you another review. This one will be for Season 4, Episode 7, entitled Dead Weight, of The Walking Dead. Now, the last episode, I know that a lot of people were kind of in one camp or the other on it. Either they really enjoyed it because of the great acting of David Morrissey and just kind of the whole build-up and what happened with the governor behind the scenes. And then there was the other half that were just kind of upset because they didn't see Rick and Daryl and you know, everybody else, Herschel, Michonne, and the group. So I personally think that this whole backstory, and I said it last week, but I'll say it again this week, of Philip, of the governor, could have been done in like a made-for-TV 2-hour movie, and they could have timed it to where it happened in between the mid-season finale and the second half of the season. However, they did not do that, and I just, you know, I wonder if you know, guys like Andrew Lincoln and Norman Reedus are still getting paid, even though they're not in these two episodes at all. So that's ultimately what this episode was. It was the continuation from the last one. The last one we left off with the governor and Megan and the little girl, of course, and Lily and Tara, I believe, fleeing from a bunch of walkers. The governor and Megan falling into this pit filled with walkers, and the governor, took out 3 or 4 of them by hand, pretty brutally. And we find out that these pits were dug by, and we wind up seeing Martinez, who had abandoned the governor, obviously, after his little episode, at the end of season 3. So that's where we leave off, and really that's where we pick up right away. Martinez goes and pulls the little girl out of the pit, pulls the governor out of the pit. Immediately, we find out that it's only Martinez, and there's some other people in this camp, but it's only Martinez that knows the governor, and he doesn't, blow his whole fake identity thing as soon as, Lily and Tara call out to make sure he's okay and call him Brian, as opposed to his moniker of the governor or Philip, which we presume his name actually was. So, Martinez kind of plays along, but he says, hey, listen, just so you know, I'm in charge. That's how it works. There's no dead weight, blah, blah, blah. So they go back to the camp, and this whole episode for me is really like kind of the rise of the governor is just kind of like this evil, sadistic bastard, I don't know how bad he was in the comics and everything else, and personally I don't care, because I know that there's going to be different medians, and things aren't going to translate exactly from the comics to the show or back and forth or whatever. I just know that from what I know of him personally, they tried to show everybody and make everybody believe in the last episode that he could be redeemed. And to some degree he can. You really can't fault the guy for some of his thoughts, even though he's kind of sociopathic in the way that he is. Ultimately, he is about surviving now. He's not about playing any games, pulling any punches. He's about surviving, survival of the fittest, and that's what he's going to do. So there's, a matter of fact, there's a spot towards the end of the episode where he says, he's talking to this guy, Mitch. There's these 2 brothers, Mitch and Pete. Both were Army. And we wind up seeing in this camp, we wind up seeing the tank, which I've heard heavily talked about in the comic book. But this camp of survivors, a bunch of RVs, tanks, they dig these pits around. Martinez is in charge, and then the kind of 2 second and third in command are these 2 brothers, Mitch and Pete. Mitch is the one that's a little more practical, and he's kind of the one that's like, shoot first, ask questions later. We have to survive. Sometimes we have to do, wrong things to do that. But it's not about right and wrong anymore. It's about protecting your own. And Pete's more of like a Rick Grimes is, we don't need to kill those people. We don't need to do that. We can find another way. So the governor, towards the end of the episode, though, what I was getting back to is there's a point where he winds up saying to Mitch, he goes, you're not ever going to have to worry about doing right or wrong. There's only going to be, it's just going to be what it is. That's it. There's only going to be one choice. There's no going to be right or wrong or the good or bad choice. There's going to be the only choice, to survive. So I definitely kind of like that, but at the same time, I don't know, man, he's a little bit batshit crazy. So this episode progresses, and we wind up seeing just kind of some assimilation amongst everybody within the camp. Tara winds up making friends with this Alicia, I think she was. She's like, I think she was an ex-army as well. And they kind of make girl buddies, little lesbian gal pals or whatever their deal is. I don't know. They seem to get awfully close, awfully quick. But the governor winds up going out with Martinez and these 2 brothers, Mitch and Pete, basically on like a supply run. They hear that there's some kind of, a hunter or somebody that's shacked up somewhere in the woods. Now, on the way out there, they wind up finding two separate bodies that looked like they were murdered. They were decapitated, and they had a sign on them. One said liar, another one said rapist. And when they wind up eventually getting to this cabin, and there's like a slow build-up for it, they get to this cabin in the woods. It can never be good, right? They walk in and they find someone that looks like he offed himself, and they assume that he's the one that murdered the two, cut their heads off or whatever. They then wind up actually going deeper into the cabin, and a couple of walkers inevitably in the dark wind up popping out and almost get the two brothers. We see the governor in action go and brutally kill one of them. And really just kind of, he's very quick on his feet, which we see, obviously. We then see the heads of the two people that were cut off, and I don't know. You can only assume that this guy who offed himself, that maybe his family was killed or maybe hurt by these two people, and he went and killed them. Maybe one was a murderer, one killed a family member, one was a rapist. I have no idea. Maybe one murdered him, then raped him, or vice versa. Not really going to speculate too much on that. I don't know if it's important or not. But so they wind up going in, and they're all sitting around. They got some supplies, and later on at night, they're kind of knocking some back, having a couple of skunky beers or whatever, talking amongst themselves. And that's when we find out about the backstory about Mitch and Pete, how they're brothers. Mitch is kind of like the strong, I have a brother like this, a very straightforward, get it done type of guy. And Pete's very much he's very much like a Rick. Let's try to do the right thing. Let's try to do the good thing. Let's try to have morality, even in this time of the end of the world, and when you don't really need to have morals. So again, there's different camps on that one. Not going to get too much into it. So as the episode progresses, they wind up talking amongst themselves, and Martinez, of course, knows everything about the governor and his background, and he keeps avoiding questions. He just doesn't want anybody to know anything about his background. He's trying to forget his past, right? So because Mitch winds up saying, well, what did you do before this happened? And he wound up saying, he redirected the question and got them talking about themselves again because he didn't want to share anything. Apparently he didn't want to share too much. So we wind up going back to the camp, and again, all the women are kind of assimilating in there. Lily has, kind of become the nurse of the camp. She's the only one with any medical training. Tara made her little gal pal. The little girl Megan is happy. They've got an RV to themselves. It's happy, fun family life. So everybody's sitting around drinking, and then some go off here, some go off there, and all of a sudden the camp is just like empty and silent, which is weird because there's probably like 30 or 40 people in this damn camp. But all of a sudden there's nobody around, and Martinez, who's drunk as a skunk, the governor's old buddy, wants to go up and hang out up on the RV and talk to him and hit some golf balls. So this was kind of cool because it came a little bit unexpected. Martinez is drunk, and he's talking about how the other guy, Shumpert, he wound up he got bit, he had to kill him, he had to put him down right over there. And he basically goes on and tells the governor about how, I see you got a new family now. I could never do that knowing that they're just going to die anyway. And the governor kind of gets real quiet, but he says, no, they're not. And he's like, yeah, well, I hope not. But, he's being a realist. You're going to lose people, right? And you get close to people in this type of world, and you're going to lose them, right? So when it winds up happening, then he says, well, you're here to protect us, in this camp and everything. And Martinez says, yeah, I'll try. I'll do my best. At this point, this is when the governor goes and kind of snaps out of this thing. And then Martinez says to him, he says, maybe you want to share the crown with me, right? Maybe you want to help me out with it. He's looking for help. So the governor comes up behind him and just nails him with this club, right? Martinez is drunk, of course. He's been, he's not out, but he's definitely not feeling good. Pushes him off the end of the RV, jumps down, and then drags him over to the walker pit where the walkers fall into and they capture him there, and then they burn him every couple days or what have you, and he feeds Martinez to the walkers. And then boom, cut to commercial. And I'm thinking, the whole time during commercial, I'm thinking, what the fuck did he just do that for? But then it hit me. Martinez went and said about how, first of all, he was unsure of his own leadership skills, and he was looking to the governor for help. That's not the sign of a good leader. The governor knows that you have to make decisions without remorse, without regress, and without really thinking about it. And here this guy is not even sure if he can protect them. So in his mind, it was like, hey, he's weak. He's going to wind up getting people killed, maybe the people I love killed, so we're going to kill him. So then it comes back from the commercial break, and the governor kind of wakes up like he's in this, cold sweat and everything. And I'm thinking, and my son looks at me and he goes, my oldest, and he goes, oh, it was just a dream. And I said, no, I don't think so. So he winds up, Tara said, what's going on? Oh, I just had a bad dream, or Lily asked, or what have you. And then they wind up having a meeting the next day. they somehow deduce, Mitch and Pete, the two brothers, that Martinez got drunk and was hitting some golf balls, got drunk, and fell into the Walker pit, right? So apparently they're detectives now. That's what they figure happened. There's some fighting amongst themselves in the camp, a little bit of verbal masturbation, like what as I like to call it, going on about, kind of who's going to be the leader now. And this Pete winds up saying he's temporarily going to be the leader, okay, the kind of weaker of the two brothers. Him and Martinez, or not Martinez, him and the governor and his brother Mitch wind up going out later on that day, and we kind of see they come upon this camp of about 10 people, and Mitch is like, hey, listen, we can go take their supplies, blah, 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 this and that, and Pete's like, well, first he's thinking about bringing them in and thinking about this, and then ultimately he makes a decision, no, we're not going to rob those people of their supplies, even though we have the advantage, we have the guns, and we need them, right? So they're walking around through the woods a little bit later, and then the governor goes and kind of walks off, and they follow him, and he comes back upon that camp of about 10 people, and they've been killed. They've all been murdered, and there's one that's kind of still half, breathing, whatever, alive. That guy, Mitch, stabs him in the head. Pete doesn't like that, because, again, he's like a Rick Grimes. He wants to save everybody. The governor's more of like, he understands that Mitch is a soldier, and he's just doing what he needs to do to survive. So, ultimately, the brothers are fighting about that, because of the fact that, hey, listen, if we had just robbed them now, we'd have these supplies. Now they're dead and we don't have the supplies. And, of course, there's this terrible terror that's out there now, whether it be these hunters that everybody keeps talking about, whether it's just another group, we don't know. So then here's what a cool part happens. I thought this was kind of cool. At first, I didn't think much of it, and then again, it was my son who brought up something that I thought was kind of profound, and maybe I'm wrong, whatever. I might be off base. So the governor gets back to the camp, and he gets everybody to pack up. He gets Lily and Megan, the little girl, and Tara to pack up his new family, and they take off in the middle of the night. They're going to leave, right? He's like, it's not safe, blah, blah. He's freaking out. He's paranoid. They happen upon, they have to stop in the middle of the road. He's got the headlights on. It's dark. He gets out. And in the mud, in the middle of the road, there's like a couple dozen walkers that are just stuck from like the waist down in there. Now, immediately I was like, what the hell's going on? Is it a herd? Is it a this? Is it a that? My son looks at me and he goes, maybe those are all the people that he gunned down at the end of season 3, right? And because all of a sudden he kind of does a U-turn. He gets back in the car and the next thing you know, they're back at the camp kind of giving it a try. So it made a lot of sense, because if those are in fact the walkers, it's not like he couldn't have found a way to get around or found another road if he really wanted to leave. Maybe those were all the people that he had killed, and maybe in his mind it was kind of like that triggered the, hey, you know what, I do what I got to do to survive. I'm just going to go back to the camp and run things myself. Because that's what he does. He goes back to the camp. The next morning, he goes to Pete, the weaker of the two brothers, his trailer. He stabs Pete, chokes Pete out, and then goes to Mitch's trailer and tells the other brother, and he tells him he killed him. He's got a gun on him. He says he killed him. He offers Mitch a deal and basically says, hey, listen, buddy, you want to be my second in command and my lieutenant? That's where it comes into play, where he says, you'll never have to worry about being weak and making a decision, or your brother making a decision that, winds up costing us some supplies. There's not going to be right or wrong. There's only going to be what we do, okay? So he offers him this choice and starts kind of running things again. He's the captain of the the cheerleading squad over here. I mean, he's the big swinging dick of the camp again, and he assimilated himself pretty quick in there. So he winds up getting everybody else moving along, doing some things. They're stocking the armory. They got this set up, and he's back to, it's Woodbury. It's Woodbury Part 2 is what it is, just not in a town. They're in a camp. So now you start thinking, well, when's he going to get greedy and hungry to go kill Michonne and go to the prison, And there's a brief scene where everybody feels so safe and good with the pits and all the other stuff they got going on there that the little girl, Megan, and her sister, Tara, go and play tag. Megan goes and she's running, and she runs towards some clothes hanging on a clothesline, and what do you know? Boom, she opens up the thing, goes behind it, and there's a walker, like you didn't see that one coming. The walker I thought was going to actually kill her. I thought she was going to get brutally killed, and I thought the sister who comes to help her and is trying to grab the walker and pull her, because the girl falls down trying to crawl underneath the car. The walker is down trying to grab her, and the sister, Tara, is grabbing the walker, but its ankle and foot is like pulling off. It's really just a gross, grisly scene. And she's trying to pull it back to save her niece, actually, I'm sorry. And I was thinking they were both going to get bit, and that was going to be what was going to tip the scales for the governor, just mentally. He was just going to fucking go cuckoo again, right? But he winds up coming out there and, like it's nothing, just pulls out his gun, man, and just that nickel-plated Beretta or whatever that he's got, just shoots the zombie in the head. Looks around, everybody's got his shirt open, he had his eye patch off. There was also a moment, too, where Lily was coming in to get a little governor action there, and he had the eye patch off and everything. So apparently he was going to keep both eyes open and give her the governor special. just like he did in the last episode, which was a little bit creepy in the truck right next to the daughter. But hey, whatever, I'm not judging. It's the apocalypse. So the point being is that he's just kind of cold and heartless, you know. We wind up seeing, he then goes to the lake where he wind up dropping that Pete's body in there. He never stabbed Pete in the head after he choked him out and then stabbed him in the body. He put a weight on him, and that's where the dead weight, I think, thing comes from. Because remember how he had the fish tanks back, the fish tank with the heads in it back in season 3? Well, now he's got a giant fish tank. It's a whole fucking lake because he looks out over the dock and there's Pete underwater. Now instead of heads, he's got the whole body, right? So he's starting a whole new collection, and he's got a lot of room to fill up over there. So I was thinking, oh boy, this is gonna be good, you know. And it was definitely kind of sick. But so then the episode ends up, though, where we were 2 episodes ago, where we see the back of the governor's head looking at the prison. He's driving through the woods, clearly going to scope out the prison. He sees Rick and he sees Carl, and he pulls out his gun, and he has a chance to end it and kill at least one of them right there. He's maybe 50 feet away, 100 feet away, I don't know, probably 100 feet away. And then he goes and he hears something, and he sees off to the side. This is right after everything finished up in episode 5. And, when they were burning bodies and everything else, all the walkers had started to come through the gates. And, of course, the infection, the flu that had spread, and the people had died in cell block D. So he winds up seeing at the end of the episode, he sees Herschel and Michonne, right? And everybody's been, deducing that he's going to capture them. He's going to kill one of them, whatever. I don't know. I don't care. All I know is it was cool because finally for next week, the mid-season finale, the last episode we get until probably February-ish, sometime in February, is going to be, I think a giant climactic mid-season finale. I think he's going to want to take the prison, get in the damn tank, go driving up there. But anyway, he winds up seeing them. He raises his gun, and then it just kind of cuts to black, right? So he sees, fades to black. He sees Michonne. He sees Herschel. So my chapter question is, for your episode question, I should say, is what do you think of the rise and fall of the governor, so to speak? In the last episode, they built him up to be this redeemable human being, this person with a heart. And even in some of this episode, you saw some of that, but then you really seen the psychopath come out, the person who does anything to survive. And now that he has something he cares about, he wants to protect, now he's going to kill anybody and anything in the whole world. Walking Dead, doesn't matter if they're alive, and he's got a tank. Okay, so that's pretty bad. And he's got a guy who knows how to drive it, too, because that guy, Mitch, ex-Army, knows how to drive the tank, So I'm certainly excited about next week's episode. I really would have rather done without having 2 full weeks away from our main group. I think they could have done like a made-for-TV special or somehow penciled or shoehorned these into the first 6-7 episodes. But again, I'm still enjoyed it. I thought it was very good, and I really think it built a nice backstory to the governor and to really show what's been going on and now why he's so determined again with Woodbury number 2. So let me know what you think, though, about the episode, and certainly they give me the answer to the question in your opinion, or at least your opinion of that, in the comment box down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching all of you next week and in the next one, Nation.
Subscribe. That is all. Man, that's not all.